eyes, and since the group had already collected them, he thinks it's easy money and accepts the job. They divide the loot from their hunt, where Makoto only keeps the ruby eyes and a few of the other valuable materials, leaving the rest for the others. They all bid each other farewell, but he suggests celebrating before they part ways. They also share their contacts through their license cards, which also have the function of making calls and accessing information. At the dinner, the group bonds and learns more about each other. The adventurers introduce themselves. There's Louisa the gunner, Hazel the alchemy meister, and Nina the priest knight. Nina then challenges Makoto to an arm wrestling match, but she's no match for him and he easily defeats her. Toa warns him about the quest, because there are various rumors of bad things happening to those that work with the Rembrandt Trading Company. This makes him cautious, and he secretly inspects the ruby eyes before taking them to his room. Since Mio is sharing the room with him, she hopes they'll get intimate, and to increase her odds, she even considers destroying one of the beds, but he has no interest and goes straight to sleep. The next day, Makoto can now create gates, and everyone returns to the demi-plane, where he meets Tomo's clone and reunites with Emma, who acts as his secretary. She informs him that every species in the demi-plane is settling in and performing their duties, also mentioning that they're constructing a giant castle for him, just like the one from his memories. We learn that Tomo hasn't made any contact with the group since she left for her training. As Makoto wonders how she's going, the dwarf chief rushes to take him to their workshop. He proudly presents several sets of armor they crafted, but he refuses to wear them since he's an archer, and not a knight who needs armor. The dwarves are heartbroken and start crying, but he notices a coat that suits his style and learns it was also created by Rugu. Rugu tells him it will also absorb his mana, saying it will probably kill him instantly, but Makoto puts it on anyway, and he's completely fine. Rugu explains that the coat can change colors, switching between defense and mobility, but it soon fails to absorb all of Makoto's mana and gets torn. Makoto asks if he can make it more durable, and Rugu promises to make one that will be able to kill him instantly, so Makoto worries about his motivation. On the other hand, the Alki have transformed into humans using magic, and they primarily focus on collecting ingredients, since they can even consume the most poisonous items without any side effects. The following day, Makoto takes the ruby eyes and heads to the Rembrandt Trading Company, where he's warmly welcomed by the company's president Patrick and his butler Morris. Meanwhile, an adventurer named Lime visits the guild to learn the identity of the one who took the job of finding ruby eyes, so the receptionist tells him about Makoto. Makoto tells Patrick that due to a curse, he can't speak, so he communicates using his bubbles. He then introduces himself as a level 1 E-class adventurer, but the mere mention of this disappoints Patrick, thinking Makoto is just another overconfident rookie dreaming of success. But Makoto pulls out the ruby eyes, and this shocks him. He quickly confirms their authenticity, and asks for forgiveness for his rudeness. Makoto asks him why he needs these eyes, so he reveals that he needs them to create a magical medicine called ambrosia, to cure his wife and daughters, who were afflicted with a level 8 curse. Makoto sympathizes with him, and tells him he knows an alchemy meister who can help them create the medicine, but Patrick mentions that they still need more rubies to create the antidote. But Makoto cuts him off and gives him all the ruby eyes that he has, and Patrick and his servants are overwhelmed with joy. Patrick officially gives him the job receipt, and wishes him luck with his registration exam at the Merchant Guild, but hearing this shocks him, because he was unaware of any test. Makoto soon reaches the Merchant Guild, where the receptionist tells him about the written exam, and if he passes it, he will then need to complete the practical material gathering test, adding that if he fails, he will need to wait 6 months before he can apply again. To prepare for the written test, he buys an expensive book to study, but upon looking at the contents, he immediately regrets his decision. The receptionist thinks he must find it challenging, saying the test is almost impossible to pass, but Makoto instantly asks to take the test, since it's just grade school maths. He breezes through the written test in just 5 minutes, and the examiner is shocked to see his near-perfect score, while Makoto wonders about the state of education in this world. In the next part of the exam, the examiner instructs him to randomly choose the item he must obtain. As he makes the selection, the examiner boasts that the items that he needs to find are super rare, and he must bring something that's of equal or greater value within the next 3 days to pass the exam, but Makoto thinks that the items he collected with the adventurers are rare, so he takes them out as a substitute, shocking the examiner. On the other hand, Tomo proves her strength as she defeats a massive crab monster and shares a feast with her companions. However, a demi-human brings a message from Emma that Mio has entered the memory vault, so she gets jealous and rushes back. As she returns, Tomo asks if Mio has gone through Makoto's memories, but Emma assures her that she's only translating them. Tomo asks if anything happened between her and Makoto while she was away, but Mio just changes the topic. Later at a restaurant, Makoto struggles to order anything due to the language barrier. He unexpectedly orders what appears to be a lemonade, but when it's served, it's not what he expected, and he longs for a real meal. We see Lime spying on him, and the people there discuss the defeat of the killer bees and giant crab monster. After his unpleasant experience trying new food, Makoto returns to the demi-plane to enjoy his fruits, but he learns from Tomo's clone that production has decreased due to erratic weather patterns. Makoto talks about his dream of creating an illusory city, explaining that it would be a city that people would only find if they got lost in the mist. The people would be given rare foods and items, which would increase their reputation and value in the outside world. But he suddenly receives a telepathic call, alerting him that Mio is in danger. He asks a human alky about the situation, who informs him that while translating memories, Mio came across something she wanted to watch, but Tomo is stopping her. Makoto intervenes and asks Tomo what's going on. We learn that Mio saw Makoto's memories of an anime and instantly became a fan, so they are fighting about whether anime or historical dramas are better. After their pleading, Makoto allows them to continue watching, but tells them not to fight over it again. At night, Makoto plans to rest in his room, but when he notices that there are only 2 beds for the 3 of them, he asks the 2 to give him one of the beds, but they tell him to pick one of them to share the bed with. He refuses to choose, so he ends up sleeping in a chair instead. The next morning, Makoto discusses creating a medicine with Hazel, but as they prepare to head out, Lime watches them from a distance, telling his friends to launch an all-out attack on them. Makoto and Hazel visit the Rembrandt Trading Company, but it makes Hazel uneasy because the company is well known in the city, and he fears upsetting them. Morris takes them to the lab, where Hazel starts reading the recipe, and is surprised by how easy it is to make, but he's told that extracting fluid from ruby eyes is the only difficult part. He starts gathering magic, but Makoto gets irritated by how much the goddess is being mentioned in his incantation. He also finds Hazel's method inefficient, so he secretly interferes and helps him out. Hazel asks Morris if they're using a replacement method, and he says it's because the ambrosia flower in the original recipe is rare, so they're using the ruby eyes instead, because the bees feed on the flower, but this gives Makoto the idea of making the flowers his company's specialty if he can get his hands on them. Hazel soon creates a bottle of the ambrosia, which Morris takes to Patrick, and while he's gone, they make 2 more potions, but when he comes back and slams the door, it causes Hazel to drop the potion he's holding, but Makoto manages to catch it before it hits the ground. Morris takes them to Patrick, who's injured because he tried to feed the ambrosia to his wife, but got attacked by her, and it took several guards to stop her. He says that this spasm was nothing like before, but Hazel thinks it wasn't a spasm, and something was added to the curse to stop her from taking the medicine, which is possible with level 8 and above curses. Patrick talks about his wife, saying how she only had a mild fever, but she never recovered, and eventually lost her sanity.